Aaron Cash recalled that night back in Arkham Asylum when, watching from a security monitor, he saw Quincy Sharp scrawl an elaborate message on the floor of the cell block control room using a rusty nail and blood from his fingertips before forcing his way out of the cell, only to disappear into the chaos. He didn't know where Sharp had gone, but he was sure that there was something seriously wrong with the future mayor of Gotham City. With no other career options available and nagging feeling that he had seen Hugo Strange before, he reluctantly accepted the job of running a small medical team charged with providing assistance to any resident of Arkham City who needed it. Andrei Abramovich was a respected man in the small Siberian village where he lived with his pregnant wife. When word reached Andrei that his wife was in labor, he rushed home, excited to be at her side, but was met only by the midwife. His wife had not survived the birth. Complications due to the special nature of his newborn sons were to blame. Pushing into the room, he found his twin sons joined at the shoulder, screaming for their mother. He took the twins and left town. Crying, he stood on a bridge over the freezing cold river and contemplated throwing them to their deaths. But he could not do it. Leaving his sons outside the tent of a traveling freak show, Andrei returned home to his village a broken man. The Joker heard tales of the conjoined Abramovich twins, now widely known as Hammer and Sickle, and their reputation for brutality, and he wanted them for himself. Sending Harley on a desperate mission to retrieve them, she passed on the message to the circus owner that her Putin would pay big for the twins. Of course, the owner refused to sell his headlining act. He promptly vanished, only to be found 3 months later with a new smile carved on his face. Once the decision to create Arkham City had been approved, Mayor Sharp ordered that Arkham Island be put up for sale. In a press conference, he claimed, "This is a fantastic revenue opportunity for Gotham City." Although a number of prominent Gotham companies entered bids for the land, the winning bid came from a previously unknown security company named Tiger. Within weeks of the sale, Tiger was also awarded the contract to police Arkham City and instantly began using the island to launch its fleet of helicopter gunships to patrol the new prison facility. Cash chose the abandoned church building near the Solomon Wayne courthouse to situate his medical team at. Knowing that Strange was only providing the minimal amount of medical assistance to placate those campaigning against Arkham City, Cash was forced to beg for equipment and additional medical supplies. The first donations came from Bruce Wayne himself, who supplied a series of security shutters to keep the people within the building safe, along with cutting-edge body armor and supplies. On hearing about Wayne's donations, Strange was furious and locked down all supply routes between the medical team and the outside world. On the perimeter wall of Arkham City is the Tiger Confiscated Goods Vault. This high-security facility houses all the items confiscated from criminals upon their admittance to the prison. A special vault is used to protect the equipment and ill-gotten gains of the various supercriminals, and it is guarded 24/7 by a squad of Tiger Guards. Upon her arrest, Hugo Strange placed all Catwoman's belongings there, and she has vowed to get them back and leave Arkham City for good. Just weeks before Arkham City was due open for business, the streets and roads of the northeast of the facility were devastated by a series of unexplained seismic incidents. The large-scale subsidence left the street level of an entire district submerged underwater. Campaigners opposed to Hugo Strange's super prison demanded further investigations into the cause of the disturbances, arguing that this was further proof that the area was unfit under basic humanitarian grounds. However, Strange vetoed plans for an inquiry on this land. He provided his own experts to demonstrate that the seismic activity was a one-off event and maintained the inmates had given up their rights to any decent standard of living. Upon becoming mayor, Quincy Sharp presented Gotham City with his plan to create a super prison in the north of the city, claiming that the site was selected because it contained extreme areas of social decay and neglect. When Bruce Wayne spoke out at the consultant community hearing, the mayor pointed out that this location was where Wayne's parents had been murdered decades before. The council passed the motion to create Arkham City and set about issuing eminent domain seizures, allowing it to purchase all the land within the site's walls. Hugo Strange's obsession with Bruce Wayne and Batman was unbearable. He needed to know every small detail of how this man functioned to understand exactly what made him tick, so that he could finally destroy him. Strange manipulated the mayor into allowing squads of Tiger officers to be deployed into Gotham City under the pretense of aiding the police. However, unknown to the people of Gotham, the Tiger Guards had only one target, the Batman. Strange knew his men would initially fail, but he studied every defeat meticulously, analyzing the techniques and strategies of his opponent. It would be only a matter of time before he had the necessary data to defeat the Bat. Mayor Quincy Sharp looked proud as he addressed Gotham on the night that Arkham City officially opened for business. As he introduced Hugo Strange to the mass of journalists, he felt sure that the hard work and sacrifices had been worth it. He could hardly believe that he achieved so much in the 18 months since the event of Arkham Island. As the champagne bottle smashed against the wall, Strange whispered to him that he would soon have Catwoman and Two-Face arrested and brought to his prison. Quincy smiled. With Arkham City's construction complete, he was guaranteed the approval of the city, and with all the supervillains in his custody, their next target would be Batman, the person he blamed for everything. After being hit by the Batmobile and knocked into the dark waters surrounding Arkham Island, Bane swam to the shore but was quickly recaptured and taken back to the asylum. Weakened by his injuries and the experiments performed upon him by Dr. Young, he patiently waited, plotting his revenge. Forced into keeping a low profile as he recovered, Bane searched Arkham City for a suitable location to act as a hideout and found just what he needed in the form of the Crank Toys building. There, surrounded by toys, he waited, recuperating until the time was right to make his move. Having no love for his fellow prisoners in Arkham City, Bane set up and presided over an underground fighting contest where inmates fought in vain for the privilege of trying to take him down. Word of these fights spread throughout Arkham, and the Joker sent Bane a little surprise. As Bane moved in for the kill, the Joker's henchman triggered a Titan injection that ripped through his body, transforming him to a monstrous Titan. Barely surviving the fight, Bane had a new problem. Somehow, Titan had found its way into Arkham City, and it was up to him to stop it from falling into the wrong hands. Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask, is the first and only inmate to have escaped from Arkham City. Using explosives stolen from the Penguin, he waited until the Tiger shift changed, blasted his way through the containment wall, and went on the run in Gotham City. Furious, Hugo Strange ordered his Tiger Guards operatives into the streets to focus all their attention on finding Black Mask, who was finally recaptured after a violent siege at the meatpacking plant he owned. Promising that no one else would ever escape again, Strange fitted a series of automated machine guns to the walls of Arkham City, designed to kill anyone else who dared to try. As Hugo Strange was revealed as the public face of Arkham City, Batman attempted to uncover any information he could about the history of this mysterious figure. Convinced that nothing in Arkham City was what it seemed to be, Batman dug deeper and deeper, but came up blank. It was as if all evidence of Strange had been wiped clean. One thing was certain, however: Strange could not have done this alone. Batman was determined to ensure that the site of his parents' death would not become a monument to Gotham's failure, and dedicate himself to shutting down Arkham City. Julian Day, aka Calendar Man, has been locked in a cell in Arkham Asylum for a full year when he was moved to Arkham City. Unable to celebrate the passing holidays in his own inimitable style, he could do nothing more than just imagine what he would have done if he were free. In Arkham City, he quickly found the Solomon Wayne courthouse and claimed it as his own. Anyone who dared come in was overpowered and taken to a cell where they remained until the next holiday, when Day would kill them. It was all going well, until Two-Face arrived with a small army and took the courthouse for himself, locking Day up in a cell. Basil Carlo, aka Clayface, used his ability to mimic the exact appearance of anyone to impersonate Quincy Sharp and escape from Arkham Asylum. On the run in Gotham City, Clayface had been forced to constantly change his appearance in order to stay one step ahead of Hugo Strange and his guards. His current whereabouts are unknown. The Falcones are America's oldest surviving crime family. Generation after generation has ruled the underworld with iron fists, preferring to stay away from more colorful supervillain activities. They maintain legitimate business interests, including garbage collection and shipping companies. The current head of the family, Carmine the Roman Falcone, is feared by all and until recently had this sitting in his pocket, but something has changed. Quincy Sharp, the newly elected mayor, and a man who should be afraid of him was not. Carmine's attempt to intimidate Sharp had resulted in his henchmen mysteriously disappearing, and Sharp has struck back, with the Tiger Guards closing down Falcone's operations all over the city. As Hugo Strange's Tiger Guards' grip on the city tightened, a Falcone family meeting was called. The choice was simple: stay in Gotham and face arrest and imprisonment in Arkham City, or leave. The younger members of the family argued that the Falcones run from no one, but in the end, it was the Romans' decision. The next day, the entire family packed up and left Gotham, heading to the relative safety of Bloodhaven. After Batman stopped him from escaping Arkham Asylum, the Joker sat alone in his padded cell, knowing something was wrong. The first sign was an unusual lump on his shoulder. He felt tainted. Weeks went by and 10 more unusual lumps appeared. The Titan had done something to him. Something bad. Something that wasn't funny at all. The Joker was dying. He knew it, and so would anyone who saw him. The last thing he needed was to appear weak before his rivals. So one day at lunch, the Joker took a spoon and dug out another inmate's eyes. Knowing this would get him solitary confinement, he could keep out of sight, at least until his transfer to Arkham City. The Joker needed an escape plan, and on the night of his transfer, Harley Quinn provided one. Disguised as an Arkham guard, she overpowered the Joker's escort and stole her pudding away to a boat waiting on the island's quayside. As the boat carrying the twisted pair sped off towards Gotham, it was joined by a second. A secret alarm placed by Batman had alerted him to the Joker's escape, and here he was in the Batboat, pursuing the fugitives. They ignored his orders to stop, so Batman opened fire. As Harley steered the boat to shore, missiles ripped the hull to pieces. They swam, the weakened Joker being pulled through the water by a distraught Harley, desperate to save her pudding. She pulled the Joker out of the water to safety, somehow avoiding Batman's searchlight. She and the Joker sat there, gasping for breath, when they suddenly realized where they were: Arkham City. Working at Arkham Asylum, Professor Hugo Strange used a series of complicated psychological profiling techniques to identify the man behind Batman's mask as Bruce Wayne. Planning to become both rich and famous, he plotted to sell the secret of Batman's identity to the highest bidder. Word spread throughout the criminal underworld that Batman's greatest secret was for sale, but before anyone could act on it, Hugo Strange vanished. Now in charge of Arkham City, Strange continues his radical experiments into the workings of the human mind. During processing, Strange personally selects inmates that fit his criteria and has them taken away to his inmate behavioral analysis unit. No one knows what happens to the missing prisoners in that room except Strange himself. Sometimes they emerge lobotomized to roam the streets. More often they are never heard from again. Some people believe that Strange brainwashes the missing thugs and turns them into his tiger guards, whereas others believe he has a deal with the Penguin and hands them to use as target practice. As the plans for Arkham City became public knowledge, Commissioner Gordon, incensed as not having been consulted over Mayor Sharp's decision, attempted to block construction with a court order. He failed. The Commissioner called on Batman and explained that he suspected corruption at the highest level of Sharp's administration. After losing his case against Mayor Sharp, Gordon was summoned to City Hall. Sharp tried to reason with Gordon, explaining that Arkham City would be something they could both be proud of, but Gordon held his ground. Sharp calmly stated that he understood Gordon's position and expected Gordon to quietly resign. Furious, Gordon stormed out. He might have resigned if he hadn't been talked out of it by Batman. Batman suggested attacking Mayor Sharp in Arkham City with a public campaign, headed not by Gordon, but someone with the money and profile needed to win popular support. Someone like Bruce Wayne. Soon after his arrival in Gotham City, the Penguin decided to make an impression on the underworld elite with a gala opening for his nightclub, the Iceberg Lounge. He included the notorious Joker, whose appearance would surely impress the crowd. When the Joker arrived, Harley Quinn on his arm and dainty flower in his lapel, the Penguin was thrilled. He was hosting the sinister soiree of the century. Until a clumsy waitress spilled a drink on the Joker. The laughing Joker aimed his flower, and an acid spray melted the girl's face. As alarmed patrons fled the scene, a cold, dark rage at the Joker curled inside Penguin. The Joker eagerly returned to the Iceberg Lounge a few weeks later, but was insulted to find his name was not on the guest list. Willing to overlook this obvious mistake, he shot the doorman on his way in, kicked his feet up by the table, and ordered a glass of warm milk. He was pleased when alongside the milk was his summons to the club's VIP section. Led to the back room, past a tank where Tiny the Shark circled, the Joker happily greeted the Penguin, who promptly pushed him out of a door onto the street. The Penguin squawked out that the club had a new no-clowns policy before slamming the door. After arriving in Arkham City, the Joker and Harley Quinn were eager to explore their new stomping ground. Reflecting that years had passed since the Penguin banned Joker from the club, they sought out the blue neon lights of the Iceberg Lounge. Harley pounded on the door, certain that Cobblepot would let bygones be bygones. The Penguin answered, a hulking guard at his side, and immediately reminded them of his no-clowns policy. He just managed to close the door before the acid from Joker's flower shot out at his face. In order to remove Waylon Jones, aka Killer Croc, from the sewers below Arkham Asylum, Strange ordered a squad of tiger guards to lure him out using body parts from deceased inmates. Although this strategy proved unsuccessful, the team was able to subdue Croc when he emerged from the sewers looking for food once the supply of bodies had run out. Disgusted at the crimes Jervis Tetch committed in the guise of the Mad Hatter, Quincy Sharp decreed that Tetch should never see the outside world again. For months, Tetch was locked in solitary confinement, deep in the bowels of Arkham Asylum's maximum security wing. Locked up in the dark without his hats, his tea, and most importantly, his Alice, Tetch's mind crumbled. Professor Hugo Strange became fascinated by Tetch's case, taking particular interest in Tetch's mind control experiments. Strange manipulated security procedures, allowing him full access to Tetch behind the warden's back. If Hugo Strange's plans were going to work, he needed a way to control Quincy Sharp. Having worked with Tetch for months, he had refined and perfected the psychoactive compound that would have made anyone who ingested it more malleable and open to digestion. The next day, Strange invited Sharp to join him for tea at his office in the administration building. The Maroni family has long been at war with their arch-rivals, the Falcones. In a constant game of one-upmanship, each family has been hurt. Sons and daughters have been killed, businesses have burnt to the ground, and still it goes on. Determined to win the war once and for all, the Maronis met in their family restaurant and talked into the night. Little did they know that as they talked, they were surrounded by Carmine Falcone's men who opened fire, killing almost everyone within. With their leadership gone, the surviving Maronis have all been incarcerated in Arkham City. Not every building in Arkham City was in disrepair before the mega prison was constructed. One operating building was the Gotham City Olympus nightclub, originally owned by Maxie Zeus. Although Maxie disappeared in Arkham Asylum after one too many rounds of electroshock therapy, the club kept running in his absence, leading some to think Maxie hasn't gone far. When Hugo Strange arranged for Nora Freeze to be moved to Arkham City, her husband Victor Freeze, aka Mr. Freeze, escaped from his refrigerated containment cell to find her. But Strange was waiting for him, and he calmly informed Victor that Nora had been transported for her own safety, and that if Victor wished to see her again, he should move quietly to his new home in Arkham City. To motivate Victor further, Strange promised him full access to laboratory facilities in the old GCPD building, now abandoned within the high-security walls of Arkham City, stocked with all the tools required to seek a cure for Nora. Mr. Freeze stood alone in his new laboratory. Everything Strange had promised was true. Everything except his frozen wife, Nora, who was nowhere to be seen. Furious, Freeze upgraded his suit's weapon systems, arming himself to force Strange to give him back his wife. Waiting until dark, he marched out of the GCPD, only to be ambushed by a squad of Tiger operatives with orders to take him to Professor Strange. While in residence at Arkham Asylum, Hugo Strange experimented on prisoners as part of the process leading to him unlocking the workings of the mind in order to control it. In order to cover up his experiments, he arranged for these poor individuals to be lobotomized, locked in the cells, and forgotten. It was during these experiments that Strange perfected his ability to place post-hypnotic suggestions in the minds of his victims, a technique he used to guarantee absolute loyalty from his handpicked Tiger Guards. After escaping from custody, the Joker released the lunatics and allowed them to roam free across Arkham Island in an attempt to stop Batman. At the opening of the Cobblepot Towers, Henry Cobblepot, print magnate turned hotelier, looked to his latest hotel, determined to outclass the also newly opened Grand Wayne Plaza. Desperate to ruin his rival, Judge Solomon Wayne, Henry laughed at reports that the people of Gotham preferred the restrained splendor of the Wayne Hotel to his own locations. He swore that the Cobblepot hotels would be the premier destination of the world. He was wrong, and it cost him both his fortune and his health. On his deathbed, Henry left the remains of his fortunes to his son, Stanley Cobblepot. Stanley vowed to outdo the Wayne family and their empire, now headed by Alan Wayne. Stanley Cobblepot instigated a very public feud with the Wayne family. As the Wayne business empire extended to include hotels and other public buildings, Stanley was determined to outdo them, pouring more and more money into his fledgling hotel business to the detriment of the newspaper business and his relationship with his son, Oswald. As Stanley's businesses crumbled around him, he sent Oswald to school in England. Feeling abandoned and picked on by his peers for his homely appearance, Oswald skipped class after class, preferring the company of the thieves and scoundrels he met on the streets. By the time his father's empire collapsed, Oswald had vanished. When the council decided to shut down the Pinckney Natural History Museum, they sold this historic structure to the highest bidder. Located in the deteriorating part of the city, many investors passed up the opportunity, but for Oswald Cobblepot, this was exactly what he wanted. He purchased the building and established this as his base of operations, converting the attached theme restaurant, the Iceberg Lounge, into a high-profile nightclub. To the public, the Iceberg Lounge was a reputable establishment, but below the surface was a den of iniquity, a go-to place for illicit and illegal wares. The adjacent museum exhibit halls were repurposed as the Penguin's storage facility, housing everything from his torture room, his weapon cache, and a gladiator pit. Illegal fights to the death occurred nightly, with the victors earning a job on Penguin's crew. The Penguin's operation was run on fear and pain. One night, a guest at the Iceberg Lounge was caught cheating at poker. The Penguin tortured this man in full view of everyone. A friend of the man grabbed a beer bottle, smashed it on a table, and attacked, driving the bottle hard into the Penguin's face. As the Penguin screamed, the attacker and his friend were dragged away to a private torture room. Cobblepot was examined by the finest doctors in Gotham City, but the prognosis was always the same: Removing the bottle could be fatal. When Penguin received the eminent domain seizure from City Hall ordering him to vacate the Iceberg Lounge, he replied with a letter telling Mayor Sharp that no one tells Oswald Cobblepot what to do. He'd bought his property legally and the city could find somewhere else to stick their prison. On the day that the perimeter wall was due to be completed, the GCPD were dispatched with backup Tiger Guards to forcibly reclaim the building. The Penguin ordered his men to fire at the police, killing 3 veteran officers. With the Penguin's criminal nature no longer in dispute, Mayor Sharp ordered the wall closed, trapping the Penguin and his gang in Arkham City. Ready to turn over a new leaf, Pamela Isley rejected her poison ivy persona and opened a small flower shop in the back streets of Gotham. Surrounded by plants, she was content for a while, but society continued to mistreat her babies, and eventually she snapped. A man came to buy flowers for his wife, obviously feeling guilty about having been unfaithful. Pamela smiled and handed over an elaborate bouquet. The plants came to life, rapidly growing onto his screaming face and pierced his skin with toxic thorns. After being given an overdose of Titan by the Joker, Poison Ivy was left to die in her airtight cell by Warden Sharp, who blamed her for the mass destruction of Arkham Island. As her health declined, she prayed for salvation. It came in the form of a priest, who was unknowingly covered in pollen from the trees near his church. As he performed the last rites, Ivy manipulated the pollen into an antidote that worked in harmony with the unique, natural toxins in her blood, and, to the amazement of the priest, she began a full recovery. Furious, Warden Sharp locked her in a biological containment unit and arranged for her to be one of the first criminals sent to Arkham City. Quincy Sharp claimed to have been instrumental in stopping the riot at Arkham Asylum, stirring a tide of public admiration. Throughout his mayoral campaign, Sharp repeatedly told voters that he would never allow their safety to be threatened by criminal scum. His victory was assured when he announced that he would create a new, high-security prison that would forever separate the good people of Gotham City from the bad. Once elected, his first move was to put the relatively unknown psychiatrist, Professor Hugo Strange, in charge of the whole facility. Otis Flanagan, aka the Ratcatcher, looked out through the cellar window on the opening day of Arkham City. He had kept out of trouble so far, but he would need a plan to survive. Arkham City claimed to be escape-proof, and the Penguin had illicit goods market sewn up, so Ratcatcher would sell small comforts. Fine soap, breath mints, extra buttons, he sent his rats out to collect such items from the outside world. It worked. Business was brisk, and he felt safe, until the Penguin came looking for his rival vendor. Flanagan was dragged screaming through the streets of Arkham City, followed by a trail of rats, into the museum, and never to be seen again. Richard Dick Grayson was the youngest in a family of acrobats known as the Flying Graysons. Their death-defying act was all that kept the circus from where they performed in business. As the people of Gotham clamored for tickets to the show, the mob came looking for their cut. After the circus owner refused them, mobsters killed Dick's parents during a packed performance attended by Bruce Wayne. Wanting to protect the devastated orphan, Bruce took Dick under his wing and became his legal guardian, eventually entrusting the boy with his greatest secret. Desperate to help his friend and mentor, Dick trained hard to become Robin, patrolling Gotham at Batman's side. Now an adult, Dick fights crime on his own as the vigilante called Nightwing. No one had seen Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow, since he was attacked by Killer Croc in the sewers below Arkham Asylum. Some say he escaped certain death by dragging what was left of himself onto a Titan container and floating out to sea, while others believe he was eaten by Croc. Undeterred, Batman has spent months searching for Crane, refusing to believe that he is dead. If Crane is out there plotting his revenge on Batman, then Batman knows Gotham will never truly be safe. On a dark and stormy night in the late 19th century, a merchant named Cyrus Gold was murdered and dumped in the swamps near the emerging Gotham City. As the body sunk into the pit, it was exposed to an unusual chemical in the swamp which miraculously reanimated the merchant. He set out wandering the streets of old Gotham, unable to remember his name and only able to recite the nursery rhyme Solomon Grundy. Seemingly able to cheat death, the undead man, now called Solomon Grundy, was captured and ruthlessly experimented on. Determined to discover what had brought Grundy back to life, it became apparent that the creature was now immortal, due to a combination of the swamp chemicals and the storm that raged on the night of his death. As the army moved throughout the condemned Wonder City searching for stragglers, no one expected what lay in Ra's al Ghul's private medical laboratory. For months, Solomon Grundy had been exposed to the Lazarus chemical and then repeatedly electrocuted. He had died dozens of times, but each time he was brought back for more. While the soldiers debated what he even was, Grundy revived again and killed everyone nearby. Mentally broken by his ordeal, he waited at the lab for the doctors to return and murder him again. Even though she is a fearsome warrior in her own right, as Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Talia is always shadowed by a secretive order of highly trained female protectors, known as the Elite Guard. Each individual guard is chosen generations in advance and trained from birth to be the best of the best, easily capable of holding their own against 100 men. Sherman Fine, aka the Broker, has carved out a lucrative business in Gotham City by being the go-to guy to purchase property. Mainly hired by the criminal underclass, Sherman will find and arrange all the necessary paperwork to ensure that the deal will go untraced while providing exactly what the client needs. In the past, he has purchased rooms on behalf of the Great White Shark, Mr. Zsasz, and the Joker. When planning his revenge on Batman, the Riddler took advantage of the Broker's services to secure the buildings that would later house his challenges. The original Scarface puppet was carved from the old gallows tree at Blackgate Prison, and eventually fell into the hands of the meek Arnold Wesker, who disappointed his family by showing more interest in ventriloquism than gunplay. Scarface became an unlikely mob boss in Wesker's hand, until Wesker was locked up in Arkham Asylum without his precious puppet. Forced to improvise, he scrounged up materials for a new Scarface, one left mute upon Wesker's departure from the asylum. When the Joker took over Arkham, he discovered Scarface in lockup and took a liking to the puppet. Scarface quickly received a garish repaint and a new voice, complete with a demented laugh and a twisted sense of humor. When Batman shut down the Joker's riot at Arkham Asylum, it seemed the relationship between the newly demented Scarface puppet and the Clown Prince had ended, until one of the Joker's old henchmen, Muggsy Binks, showed up at the steel mill in Arkham City. He'd rescue Scarface from the old asylum, knowing it would buy him favor with Joker, and Muggsy was skillful enough to make a dozen more copies, freeing the Joker to mutilate any puppet that failed to amuse him. After all, another Scarface could quickly be built up for him to laugh with, abuse, and then break into pieces. Joker's only regret is that people aren't so easily toyed with and replaced. Or are they? As Strange's grip tightened and the gates of Arkham City slammed shut on Gotham's criminals, only 3 were left at large: Two-Face, Catwoman, and Batman. Catwoman sat in her apartment, debating whether to flee when her phone rang. On the other end, the unmistakable voice of Two-Face. "Sorry, kitty cat, but one of us had to go down." Suddenly, tiger guards were at her door. Fleeing, Catwoman fought her way through guard after guard to the safety of a nearby roof. She could only watch as the guards ransacked her apartment until they found her safe. She readied her claws, but a shadowy figure appeared behind her and held a gloved hand over her mouth until she passed out. Catwoman came to in the Batmobile as it raced through the streets of Gotham. She angrily told Batman that she could not have gotten involved. Batman told her to give up on her loot and leave town before it was too late. Undeterred, she asked how Batman knew so much about Arkham City. He explained that he had found a secret room in Sharp's office back at Arkham Asylum, filled with detailed plans for the new prison complex. Catwoman thanked him and pressed the emergency eject button on her seat. The Batmobile screeched to a halt, but it was too late. Catwoman had disappeared, and Batman knew exactly where she was headed. Two-Face was already in the warden's office in Arkham Asylum, photographing the plans to the secret vault inside Arkham City. As Catwoman burst into the room, Two-Face laughed as he tossed the originals into the fire. Furious, she knocked him to the ground, grabbed the camera, and ran. With seemingly no escape for either of them, and the Tiger Guards alerted and closing in fast, Catwoman was suddenly pulled to safety by Batman, leaving Two-Face to be captured. As Catwoman ascended, she opened the camera to reveal her prize, only to find the memory card had vanished. She looked down on Two-Face, who was showing her the card before calmly swallowing it. Furious, Catwoman sliced through the line and plummeted to the ground, only to be surrounded by Tiger Guards, arrested, and taken into Arkham City. After disagreeing with Commissioner Gordon over the policing of Arkham City, Quincy Sharp announced that a private firm had been commissioned to provide a total security solution: Tiger. Unknown to everyone but Hugo Strange, each Tiger operative was profiled and implanted with post-hypnotic suggestion that made him unquestionably loyal to him and him alone. When Vicky Vale first interviewed Quincy Sharp, just days after the events of Arkham Asylum, she felt something was wrong. Sharp's later appearance on the Gotham Nightliner show that she co-hosts confirmed her suspicions. Convinced that Sharp was not the hero he made himself out to be, Vale pressed him for answers and he became confused, struggling with the facts. As she moved in for the journalist's kill, she was shocked when Sharp suddenly regained his composure, answering all her questions with authority. It was as if he suddenly spoke with someone else's voice. Whatever was going on, Vale became even more determined to uncover the truth. Over a century ago, the mysterious Ra's al Ghul arrived in Gotham City and met with the Gotham Elders. Even then, Gotham was a crime-ridden, lawless place. Ra's promised a brighter future for all in exchange for a deed to the north end of the city. The Gothamites laughed at his strange man until he produced more gold than they had ever seen. The deed in hand, Ra's began construction of a new city, a utopian vision powered by clean, free energy. With no crime, the future would be bright. And as the last brick was laid by the slaves he had shipped in from his homeland, Ra's presented the future of Gotham, Wonder City. Mechanical guardians watched over the population of Wonder City while behind the scenes, lawbreakers were removed and executed. Mechanical guardians watched over the population of Wonder City, while behind the scenes, lawbreakers were removed and executed. Wonder Tower stood above it all, a monument to prosperity. But for Ra's, the real reason was choosing this location was simple. Beneath the streets, he had located a chemical source that he called Lazarus. In small doses, it would rejuvenate a person, but Ra's believed that with enough power, the Lazarus could be supercharged to defeat any ailment, even death itself. Unknown to all but Ra's and his engineers, Wonder Tower was actually a giant lightning rod. When the time was right, he would test his theory. Wonder City continued to operate for months before the effect of prolonged exposure to the Lazarus chemical became clear. It was driving the city inhabitants insane. When Ra's al Ghul failed to act, the newly formed Gotham City Hall did. Wonder City was declared a public health hazard and quarantined. Troops dragged the screaming citizens out of their homes, straight to Arkham Asylum. Ra's al Ghul disappeared. As Gotham reached into the sky, new neighborhoods were built over Wonder City, until the site was all but forgotten. Some years later, Ra's returned in need of his old Lazarus pit. As his forces began the mining process, the streets above collapsed, but Ra's forced them to keep digging. At first it was just missing people, last seen near payphones, but then the bodies started to appear, mutilated and posted. Stories of a payphone killer spread fast. As the sound of ringing phones haunted the streets, Mr. Zsasz smiled. Hiding in a lair he purchased from the broker, he monitored an array of surveillance cameras pointed at each payphone in Arkham City. As each victim answered his call, he acted fast, following them, tracking their movements, and then, when the time was right, killing them. It was perfect. He knew one day he would see Batman holding that phone, and then he would be able to carve his final mark.